The Elder Scrolls 6 is dead. It might as well be anyway. That trailer, the one you're seeing on screen right now, that was released in 2018. Look at your calendar. Count the years. Even if there was a semblance of what The Elder Scrolls 6 was going to be, that version is long dead. In recent statements by Todd Howard, it was said that Skyrim's sequel is still a long time away from being released and that we shouldn't be holding our breath. For all purposes, ES6 is dead. Time to play and look forward to other fantasy RPG games that are much more real. Now, I think all of these games would be of interest to you if you're an Elder Scrolls fan. Some of these even draw parallels themselves to the acclaimed series, so take your pick. First up for a more recent announcement, Fatekeeper. This one immediately looks impressive, and it's being published by THQ Nordic. I'm very interested in this one. This is a handcrafted world where there's ruins and magic and sword and sorcery, where you explore the world and you forge your path, and there's relics and spells and choices that shape who you are in a first-person RPG. That sounds exactly what we're looking for, isn't it? I mean, handcrafted world alone is interesting enough. There are some procedurally generated options out there, but handcrafted, I mean, it looks really nice. From what they've shown off for this, it really looks impressive and detailed. There's melee and magic systems, and the magic spells in this does look quite impressive. There's character progression, of course, with mechanics, and there's surface-level stats, but you can refine your character with meaningful choices across combat styles, attributes, spell schools, and you can lean into whichever playstyle and combat style that you prefer. There's also lots of discovering, looting, a wide variety of weapons, armor, artifacts. You can customize your loadouts and all sorts of stuff that you would expect in this. Also, just to note, this one has a darker, more realistic, grim approach to the theme. So there is an amount of violence and gore and mature content, which for the more violent stuff I have edited out of this video just because I don't want to get in trouble. But if you go watch the full trailer of Fatekeeper, you will see a bit more dismemberment, you could say. So Fatekeeper is a great one to start us off on this list. It may be a bit less on the RPG side and a bit more on the action hack and slash side, but either way, I think this is a great contender for something else that we could be interested in playing, since we're no longer waiting for Elder Scrolls 6. Just as a note, they have said that it will be going into early access soon, so we should be able to get our hands on Fatekeeper, and then you can see whether this is one you really want to be getting into. And then for one that you can already play, we've been watching Monomyth for a while. This one entered early access towards the end of 2024 to a good few hundred user reviews on Steam at a very positive, over 90% rating. It's going through beta version 2, and there is also a free demo. And this one doesn't look quite as visually fidelifying as the first game, but it's an immersive first-person dungeon-crawling RPG, and it's inspired by the classics of the genre, which is more old school, think early 90s, the dungeon delving, dungeon crawling experience. So less of an open world and more of hallways and chambers, if you get my drift. So this one is also a dark fantasy setting. It's an open-ended world. So it's not an open world, but open-ended. There you can go from the highest towers to the lowest caverns, find secret chambers, uncover hidden passageways, and you can go in all these different directions. The world, well, the dungeon is also highly interactive. There's puzzles and items and environmental stuff, and a variety of peaceful inhabitants to talk to as well. You can trade, pick locks, break down doors, throw objects, and they even say you can bake bread, and I'm not sure exactly how that would interest you, but maybe you're a bit of a baker in an RPG. It is also very action-centric, so you're swinging your sword, casting spells, dodging, parrying, blocking. It's one of those fighting first-person dark fantasy RPGs, Classless progression is how leveling works here. You develop your own unique character that you build up, and you can invest into 6 different character attributes, 13 different skills, which then come up to dozens of different playstyles. You could be a nimble assassin, or you could be a battle mage, or just a barbarian type smasher dude. You can do that. Overall, Monomyth has been shaping up over the years. It is continuing to get regular updates. They've crossed a year in early access, and it is still continuing down the line, but it's expected to release out of early access and fully release sometime in 2026. So over the next year, Monomyth should be coming together and fully forming for this dark fantasy, dungeon-delving, first-person RPG that you can play now instead of Elder Scrolls 6. For a third-person option, the Blood of Dawnwalker. Here we have an open-world dark fantasy action RPG set in 14th century Europe, and you're playing a human-vampire hybrid type of thing. During the day, you're a normal human. You go about questing, and you do your thing, and you're trying to save your family, but also at night, well, you're a vampire, and you're basically one of those dawnwalkers, where during the day, people couldn't tell what horrible things you get up to at night. So this is a story-centric RPG. You are experiencing the world and making choices that change your environment and change the story path, which you will have to make these difficult choices. Even if you don't make a choice, if you choose to do nothing, things happen, whether you want to or not. So you gotta choose who to help, who to leave behind, and maybe the line between good and evil seems rather thin. So there's swords, claws, and rage. You are fighting like a human during the day, so you have your weapons and you have magic and stuff like that, but then at night you are this nightmare, more claw-like creature, and you get to rip people apart and drain their blood to become more powerful. The world here is a handcrafted open world, so it's all been put together intentionally as best as they can. There's forgotten ruins, remnants of an ancient civilization, and of course, as with any good RPG, there are secrets to be uncovered. Of course there are secrets to be uncovered. So this one is all about living this double life of a Dawnwalker. They are promising next-gen Unreal Engine 5 for this one. It's all looking great so far. Next up, we've got one that looks a little different, Ardenfall. This is back to being first person, and it's a more colorful, vibrant fantasy RPG where you're exploring flowing plains, rain-drenched wetlands, and forgotten dungeons full of danger. This is promising to be immersive, and the world is supposed to have intricate politics and ancient cultures that you're going through. Though, of course, for this list particularly, looking at the game, the way it looks is what stands out, and you probably know very quickly whether you enjoy the look of this game or not. However, this art style does lend itself to a more alien landscape and a more fantasy-looking world, where it doesn't just look realistic because it's not bound by trying to look realistic. It does look more low-poly, more unrealistic, I guess you could say, which does free it up for different visual approaches to a fantasy world. In this game, you create your own character and you try to make your mark on a changing world where there's various factions, and the decisions you make will change how things are. The economics of the region can shift, not just the politics and the characters. And fighting here is fighting with sandbox combat mechanics is what they call it. You choose your weapon, and it's meant to be more of a free-form kind of combat system where you throw a potion, use a spell, swing a sword, and throw a brick. I don't know. You just kind of try to put everything together to fight as probably how people would fight in real life, where you just do whatever you can in the moment to get the best outcome you can imagine. There's plenty of characters and NPCs to meet as well, each with different perspectives, beliefs, and culture, and you can build trust with these people that they could help you along your way. or get in your way. Now, this is one that I have been watching for a little bit, and it's planning to release in 2026, though it has been going through an open playtest, so it's not a full secret as to what Ardenfall is like. And for the past few years, since 2022, there's been kind of a background demo going on as well. So Ardenfall has been going through development for many years at this point, and it looks like it's about reaching a public release of some kind in the next year. Next up, we're finally getting closer to Fable. That's right, it's supposed to be a new beginning for this classic franchise, Fable, which has been a mix of serious and satirical. And from the trailers we've seen so far, we have seen that this is leaning into the humorous aspect of classic Fable. Many of the old Fable games were grounded in comedy, and this is going along those lines. People have been waiting for this one for years. It was announced a while ago, but right now it is actually loosely scheduled for a 2026 release. Of course, it could be delayed further. Many expectations were originally for 2024 or 2025. 2026 is a more plausible time for it to release, and loose schedules are placing it in that year. So it's likely we'll finally get our hands on Fable, and it's unclear whether it'll be a good game or not. It does visually look great. If gameplay actually looks as good as the trailers look and the screenshots look, then it's going to be great. If the humor throughout the game is as funny as what we've seen so far, that should hold solidly as well. But also there's this underlying feeling of how Fable was originally run by Peter Molyneux, who was famous and notorious for overpromising. And the beginning of his notoriety was with Fable, where he promised so much and it just wasn't delivered. Even though the game was still great, the overpromising was a bit of an issue. So I think this time for Fable, they're just not promising all that much. They've shown some trailers, they've shown some screenshots. That's what it is so far, and the rest is gonna be fine. If you actually go to the Steam page for the new Fable, there is literally a 2-sentence description, and that's it. So they're not promising anything. We'll probably have to wait and see to figure out what this new restart to Fable actually is. And you know, when you have a funny game, that humor better hold up, because if you're trying to be funny and you're just telling mid-jokes, it ends up pretty uncomfortable, if nothing else. So there's a lot that this new Fable has to nail. Then for the Elder Scrolls successor that I think anyone who's heard of it is most interested in, the Wayward Realms. Now, if you don't know, the Elder Scrolls series didn't begin with Oblivion, it didn't begin with Skyrim, and it didn't even begin with Morrowind. It began with Terminator, actually. It was a Terminator first-person shooter that got converted into games like Arena and, most notably, Daggerfall. And Daggerfall is a very fascinating game. It is probably boring by today's standards, but back in the day, it was phenomenally ahead of its time. There was a split at Bethesda in terms of which direction the Elder Scrolls series should go in, whether it should continue in the Daggerfall direction or change up to smaller, more handcrafted worlds. You know which one won the battle. And the original developers of Daggerfall were kind of pushed out of the company, or they left. I don't know about the specific politics of the time, but the original developers of Daggerfall, the Elder Scrolls 2, came back in more recent years to work on the Wayward Realms. And this is a true successor to the original vision of the Elder Scrolls. For what was once way ahead of its time, technology has caught up with the vision, and the Wayward Realms is meant to be what Daggerfall was always supposed to be. A ginormous, real-sized, procedurally generated open world, but with modern tech, it looks better, it's fleshed out more, and it could be the first example of a grand RPG. Now, a grand RPG, so you know how you have a strategy game, then a grand strategy game? Grand means the world around you is living and progressing whether you interact with it or not, and you're more zoomed out from things as well. So in the Wayward Realms, you are meant to be adventuring, exploring this world, but there's this political system in an ever-changing world where nations and factions and characters and peoples change over time based on some of your own decisions, but even without it, it's constantly evolving. So it's trying to be a real role-playing game where you can live your life in this game. And that was the vision and how many people played Daggerfall as well. So this is very large. It's an ambitious vision. And even if you're skeptical, everyone who knows about this is interested in whether the Wayward Realms, 1, what it'll be, and 2, can it pull it off? And that is very, very exciting. Even if this is a massive failure, well, fine. It'll be a great experiment to observe. Over the past few years, they've been revealing more and more screenshots, updating visuals, showing off some gameplay even, and it's building up and up. Hopefully, we get our hands on some kind of playable stuff for the Wayward Realms soon, but in terms of comparing this to the Elder Scrolls 6, this is far more real than that. So at least if we're looking forward to something that's on the far horizon, the Wayward Realms is something that we should look forward to first before Elder Scrolls 6. But speaking of classic games coming back to life, Gothic Remake. That's right, Gothic, which many people don't actually know, was a grim, dark, genre-defining RPG, really. It was an RPG in like a proper RPG sense. People love Gothic because it was like a, quote, real RPG. And this is supposed to be a faithful remake of that game. They're handcrafting the whole world again. It's an organic open world. You do have the RPG tropes of orcs and magic and all of this, and the setting is that there's these people trapped in a colony where they were forced to mine stuff, and there's all this politics going on. But the main selling point of the Gothic 1 remake is that it's supposed to be a truly living, dynamic world. The people are supposed to be walking around, doing their things, living their lives. The environment, the animals are supposed to have their own rhythm and natural reactions to things. As you play through the game and make choices, which you're supposed to be able to go in any direction you want at any point, you're supposed to go through the story as you see fit and even not do things you don't want to do. This is supposed to be a totally free RPG with a fully living world, and it's giving me Radiant AI vibes. If you don't remember the build-up to the Elder Scrolls Oblivion, Radiant AI was this big selling point where it's like, oh, the NPCs are gonna actually live their lives and walk around and actually have to eat and drink and survive and everything. And people are really hyped on this living world, and then we got Oblivion, and it's basically NPCs had schedules. Gothic 1 Remake is promising a true living world again, and I'm just getting those flashbacks. Hopefully, they can actually make what Radiant AI was supposed to be real, but also it being implemented into the environment as well for the animals and stuff. That could be really cool if it actually works. This is set for a Q1 2026 release early in the year if they stick to their schedule. There's a bit of a demo going on right now, and that's probably why this is also super hyped as well. If you're looking for a classic third-person RPG, then this is going to be a proper RPG. One of my biggest hopes for this game is that it actually is proper branching stories and freeform gameplay where you can miss content, so there's a reason to replay the game and try different things. We've got enough of being able to do everything in games like Skyrim. I want an RPG where you have to make choices and you miss out on stuff. So, you know, you could play the game 2, 3, 4 times. That could be cool. There's stuff like that in Baldur's Gate 3 and other classic RPGs. And if this is truly trying to be an authentic Gothic 1 remake, then we should get that here as well. And finally, I'm going to tell you about The Witcher 4. Or do I really have to tell you much about this? Everyone knows the Witcher series, and the next Witcher game has been in development, it's been confirmed. they've shown off a tech demo, which is, they say is not actual gameplay, but they have a little bit of a vertical slice where they're showing off in-game experiences with a controller, and as far as we can tell, it looks like it's all coming together very, very nicely. It looks visually amazing. And this is continuing the story with Ciri, and it's this whole new adventure, and it's promising to be the biggest, most detailed, most impressive open world the Witcher series has ever seen, which just basically means it's going to be bigger than previous games in the series. So not the biggest game in the world, but I think just visually, this is clearly the best looking game. Now, CD Projekt Red did go through turbulent times with Cyberpunk 2077, and I think they are attempting to avoid those issues this time around. Even during the tech demo, they were like, this is running on a PlayStation 5, current gen hardware. It's running and it's not lagging and it's not crashing. Like, they were trying to really show that yes, it works on current hardware, which wasn't super much the case with Cyberpunk. But The Witcher 4, it's saying that it's going to have the same creation and mod tools, the story is going to continue, and it's just going to have bigger and better gameplay and all sorts of things that is just mega promising. So if you're looking forward to a big blockbuster single-player open-world dark fantasy RPG built in Unreal Engine 5, then The Witcher 4 is gonna be the go-to game. Now, there's no promised release window for The Witcher 4 at the moment. It was announced a while ago, and since they're showing stuff off through 2025, it's getting there. There is a potential that it could release in 2026, but I'm pretty sure CD Projekt Red will be insistent on making sure that this is ready to go day one with minimal issues. There's never no issues, but minimal issues for launch. If everything is going according to schedule, I would assume that a 2026 release would be plausible. Otherwise, 2027 does seem much more realistic, especially if there's any kind of delay or anything. But either way, The Witcher 4 is much more likely to release before Elder Scrolls 6, and as you can see on screen, it is much more real. Everyone is hyped for this one, and if it is even just a slight step above The Witcher 3, this is gonna be maybe the biggest game of the year it releases in. Alright, and there you go. There are a bunch of new fantasy RPGs that you can want and play instead of waiting around for the never-coming Elder Scrolls 6. If you're watching this video in the far, 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 far future and Elder Scrolls 6 has actually released, well, first of all, what are you doing back here? Second of all, fine, I was wrong, it released. It's not actually dead, but that is so far away that I'm not too concerned about it right now. Look at all of these other games. Some of these were probably the best games that ever released. Some of them maybe not, but which ones were you most into? And if I didn't mention something, share down below so we can all look for something else we can play instead of waiting around for the Elder Scrolls 6. Alright, I hope you enjoyed this and found this useful. If you'd like to support the channel, do check out the Patreon. Direct support really does help keep things going. You can buy any game on GOG using the referral link down below, and it helps support. And just subscribe for more and like the video. Thank you so much, and I will see you in the next one.